You know that feeling? Someone's talking another language and you're hearing it, but it's like, it's not quite clicking in your brain.
Oh, absolutely. You catch bits and pieces, maybe a word here and there.
Yeah, but understanding the whole thing feels really far off. It's super common for language learners.
Definitely. And that's exactly what we're digging into today.
We're looking at some, well, really practical ways to get better at understanding spoken foreign languages.
That's right. We've gathered insights from various experts, and the goal here is to give you strategies, things you can actually use, like right away.
Things that move you past just hearing the sound.
Actually understanding what's being said.
Okay, so let's jump in. One of the first things that really jumped out was, it was surprisingly simple. Listen to stuff you actually like.
It sounds obvious, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it's so important. I mean, think about what gets you learning anything, really. It's interest, right? So if you're listening to something you find genuinely interesting, like, say, sports or a TV show you love, or just a topic you're geeky about,
Yeah.
you're naturally going to pay more attention.
You're just more engaged.
Exactly. It taps into that intrinsic motivation. Your brain's just more open, more ready to absorb things when you actually care.
And you end up learning words and phrases related to your interests, too.
Which is super useful. Plus, you're more likely to push through when it gets tricky.
And there was that related tip, sort of a clever little hack,
Yeah.
listening to things you already know.
Yes. That's a really smart approach. If you've, say, read a book in your own language or seen a movie.
Try it in the language you're learning.
Right. Because you already know the story, the characters, the basic plot. Your brain isn't trying to figure out what's happening and the language at the same time.
Ah, okay, so it frees up some mental energy just for the language part, like having training wheels on.
Precisely. It gives you that framework.
Speaking of frameworks, that kind of leads into the next big idea, doesn't it? This whole concept of focusing on the big picture first, getting the general meaning.
Yeah, the top-down listening idea. It's about using context.
How does that work in practice? There was that example.
Right, the tiger and the squirrel one. Imagine hearing something like, the tiger had been planning to catch a mouse for dinner, but after it saw the squirrel, it changed its mind.
Okay.
Maybe the first time you listen, you only catch tiger, mouse, squirrel. Just those key words.
Mm-hmm.
But even with just those, you can probably guess the gist, right? Some animals, maybe you change your plans about dinner.
Yeah, you get the basic scenario.
Exactly. And having that general idea, that context, it works like a roadmap. It makes it much easier to go back and figure out the details later.
So see the forest before you start counting the leaves.
That's a great way to put it. Get the lay of the land first.
Right. And then you can zoom in on the tricky words or phrases. Okay, what about listening speed? That was another really interesting point.
Oh yeah, the playback speed controls. Super helpful. Most platforms have them now, for podcasts, videos.
So the advice is,
Well, start by listening at normal speed. That helps with that top-down thing, getting the overall meaning, but then slowing it down.
Yeah.
That's where you can really do that bottom-up work, catching individual words, the little nuances.
And those fast speech things native speakers do.
Exactly. Those shortcuts, like how going to becomes gonna.
That can be so hard to catch.
They really can. But listening slower lets you actually hear how sounds get squished together, or sometimes even dropped in natural fast speech. It helps you start recognizing those patterns.
That makes sense. You start to decode their secret language.
Pretty much. And it's worth noting, some tools, like Mango languages, for example, actually give you both the fast and a slower, careful pronunciation from native speakers.
Oh, that's handy. Lets you hear the difference side by side.
Yeah, it can be really illuminating.
Okay, so we've got listen to enjoyable stuff, get the big picture, play with speed. What's next? Something about being more active, taking notes.
Yes, absolutely. Just letting the language wash over you, that passive listening, it's okay, but it's not nearly as effective as active listening.
And taking notes forces you to be active.
It really does. It makes you concentrate, process what you're hearing. Think about the examples, like trying to figure out who's speaking in a French podcast just by listening.
Or maybe jotting down the key moments in a German football match commentary.
Exactly. Or summarizing the dialogue bits in a Hungarian film. It makes you accountable for understanding.
And then you can check your work, so to speak.
That's the beauty of it. If there's a transcript available, comparing your notes is fantastic feedback. You see exactly what you caught and what you missed.
Helps you know where to focus your efforts.
Totally.
Now, we can't just get comfortable doing one thing, can we? The source is really stressed, mixing things up, variety.
Yeah, definitely. Sticking to just one type of listening material or one way of listening, it can kind of limit your skills.
How so?
Well, like, if you only ever watch movies with the subtitles on, you might really struggle when you have a conversation without them.
Right, no visual safety net.
Or if you only listen to, say, very formal news reports, the fast, messy, everyday chat might throw you off completely.
So vary the what?
Yeah, different topics, different accents, different speakers, different levels of formality.
And vary the how.
Exactly. Try different strategies like the note-taking, or maybe listen when there's a bit of background noise sometimes, like in a cafe. Get used to real-world conditions, and keep playing with that speed control.
Builds more robust, flexible listening skills. Makes sense. And speaking of visuals, like subtitles, the sources highlighted how helpful pictures and videos can be, especially at the start.
Oh, hugely helpful. Visuals provide so much context when you can see what's happening on screen.
You can guess a lot more about what's being said.
Absolutely. You see the setting, the actions, the expressions. It all helps you interpret the sounds. That's why movies and TV shows are such great resources.
And things like Mango Premiere, using films specifically for learning.
Yeah. Tools like that leverage this power of visuals really well. And honestly, it's closer to how we experience language in real life, isn't it? There's usually some context around us.
True, you're rarely just hearing disembodied voices.
Okay, another really practical tip was about combining listening with reading, using transcripts.
Yes, this is a really powerful technique for drilling down into the details. You listen, then you read the transcript to check. Did I hear that word correctly? Did I understand that grammar?
It's like having the answer key.
Pretty much. A great exercise is to actually try writing down what you think you hear first.
Oh, like dictation.
Sort of, yeah. Then compare your version to the actual transcript. It really shows you exactly where the gaps are in your understanding.
And transcripts are getting easier to find these days. They really are.
Yeah.
For lots of podcasts, audiobooks, news sites often have them. And of course, closed captions on videos or movie scripts work in a similar way.
Good to know. Now, stepping back a bit, why is listening so important? It seems obvious, but the sources really emphasized its central role.
It really is fundamental. I mean, you can be a great reader in a language, know lots of grammar and vocabulary on paper.
But if you can't understand people when they talk,
Your ability to actually use the language in the real world is pretty limited, isn't it? Listening is often the key skill for actual communication.
right, it unlocks conversations, understanding TV, music, just engaging more fully.
Exactly. Good listening skills open up so many more resources for learning and just enjoying the culture.
Okay, but it's not always easy. Let's touch on some common problems people run into, like bad recordings or different accents.
Yeah, those are definitely hurdles. For recording quality, maybe try to find clearer audio, especially when you're starting out.
Makes sense. And accents. They can be tough.
They can. The advice is usually maybe focus on understanding one main accent first, get comfortable with that, and then gradually expose yourself to more variety. Don't try to tackle them all at once.
Okay. What about just not knowing the words? Vocabulary gaps.
Well, that's a big one, obviously. It really highlights the need for ongoing vocabulary study alongside your listening practice. They go hand in hand.
And cultural differences, like idioms or references you don't get.
Yeah, those can pop up. See them as learning opportunities. Talking with native speakers, learning more about the culture itself really helps bridge that gap.
And speed. We talked about slowing down recordings.
Right. Using those playback controls or tools like Mango's slow pronunciation feature can make a huge difference with speed.
What about just feeling overwhelmed by long stretches of audio?
Start small. Listen to shorter clips first. A minute, 2 minutes. Build up your stamina and confidence gradually. Don't feel you have to listen to an hour-long podcast right from day one.
Some really solid practical advice there. Okay, so wrapping up the main strategies, what are some good activities people can do beyond just, hitting play?
Right, it's about that active engagement. We've mentioned lots of the what already. Podcasts, news, audiobooks, sports, movies, TV, YouTube.
Conversations.
Oh, absolutely, conversations with native speakers if you can. But the how is key, like we said. Try writing things down, maybe repeating phrases you hear out loud.
Testing yourself against a transcript.
Yep. Noting down new words or expressions you encounter. Maybe even focusing specifically on listening for a particular grammar point you're studying.
Or just trying to understand sentence by sentence, really breaking it down.
All those make your listening practice much more deliberate and effective.
And for the tech lovers out there, any app recommendations?
Sure. There are kind of two main groups. First, you've got apps designed for language learning that have audio built in, like Mango Languages. They structure the listening practice for you.
Great for building a foundation.
Exactly. And then there are all the general platforms just full of content in your target language. YouTube is massive, obviously. Podcast apps, Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, whatever you use.
Streaming services.
Yeah, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, all have language options, even things like Twitch TV for finding live streamers speaking the language.
Lots of options. The key is using them actively with these strategies.
That's the crucial part. Use the resources strategically.
So putting it all together, it seems pretty clear that getting better at listening is, well, it's vital for really learning a language.
Yeah.
And it's definitely doable.
Absolutely achievable. It just takes consistent practice and trying out different approaches.
Listening to what you enjoy, focusing on the big picture, playing with speed, getting active with notes, mixing things up, using visuals, using transcripts. It all adds up.
And when you start to really hear and understand more, it genuinely opens up a whole new world. The language, the culture, it becomes so much more accessible.
That's a great point. It really does unlock so much.
It really does. So maybe for you listening, just think, which one or two of these ideas felt like they might work for you? Which one resonates with your style?
Yeah, maybe pick one to try out this week. See how it goes.
Sounds like a good plan. It's been a really good discussion.
It really has. Okay, well, happy listening, everyone. Until next time.